want to do that.
We can't hear you, Coco. All right, people. Hey, everybody. Coco, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me now?
Okay, we can hear you
Yeah.
now.
Okay. Alrighty. Sorry about that, folks. I'm talking to the can't nobody hear nothing. Okay. So again, welcome back to another episode of My Life Has Destiny podcast, where I am one of your hosts, Coco Fenton. We have our radio show owner with us tonight, Mr. Frederick
Hey,
Bailey, or FL as he likes to call himself.
hey.
We also have our other host, Quint Jones, and we have our special guest for tonight, which is Mr. Anthony Brown. So, you guys, all I can tell you is to sit back and take a seat. Mr. Brown is going to tell you guys his story as to what has got him started to get him where he is today. And I think you'll be in for a treat.
Okay, so hi, my name is Anthony, and that's how I typically introduce myself to people. I am the author from Park Bench to Park Avenue, and I had an interesting life. I've been telling people about my book to share some experience, strength, and help, so that those that pick up the book or hear anything about me will understand that if I can do what I did after what I've been through, then anybody can do it. That's why I put myself out there in public. I started out small. Well, everybody starts out small, but as a little kid, I come from, not going to admit today as an adult, a challenging childhood. I'm from the '60s, and I'm from Ohio. And back in the day, it used to be spirit of rod, spoiled a child. That's what I was raised on. And so I had some. I got whippings. I mean, serious whippings to the point where I was hit with extension cords or whatever my mom could get a hold of. And for me, after experiencing that for a long period of time, I discovered that underneath the kitchen sink was her bottle of gin. Now, once I discovered the gin, the whippings didn't matter. But the problem was I would steal the gin and replace it with water. Now, I don't know how she got drunk, but I did. And that happened throughout my childhood. And because of the things that was going on back in those days, I decided that it was too much. Later, I discovered it was trauma, so I decided to run away from home at the age of 14. And it's really fascinating because I experimented with almost everything possible. And where I'm from in my neighborhood, the role models, I wanted to grow up to be like Fred Sanford on Sanford and Son. That's what I wanted to be when I grew up. Just for the fact that he mixed champagne and Ripple together and called it Champipple. That's what I wanted. And that was my aspirations. And so I mix wine all the time. And I remember Boone's Farm back in the days. I remember Ripple. I mean, I say I fancy myself as a connoisseur of fine grapes. Well, basically, I'm a wine, and that was how my childhood was. And so I ran away from home at 14. I joined a carnival where I could do whatever I wanted to do. And I would be a carny in the summertime, but then in the wintertime, I would come back home, stay in an abandoned building, and that was my life. And I quit school in the 8th grade. I had the privilege because of me drinking and carrying on and using, smoking, whatever I can get my hands on, and eating whatever kind of drugs was around. I was unable to go to school. I wasn't really interested in school anyway. And so I did 3 tours in the 7th grade and 2 tours in the 8th grade, and one day in ninth. And that was it. And I wanted to grow up, again, to be like Fred G. Sanford. I wanted to be a drug dealer. And I felt the only knowledge I needed to know was 28 grams made an ounce. And that was all the education I needed. And so armed with those facts, I set out as a 14-year-old to live life. Well, I did the carny stuff for a while. I remember living in an abandoned house, and back east it gets cold. Right now I'm in California, but back in Ohio, Michigan, back in the days it gets cold. And so in the wintertime, I used to get wooden crates and make furniture out of it, and then when it gets cold, I burn my furniture. But the problem with that is when you light a fire in a chimney of an abandoned house, there's smoke that comes out, and then the police would come and evict me from my premises. Well, they didn't really evict me; I was trespassing, and so that was my lifestyle. And then, finally, at the age of 18, my friend came back from California, and he said, "Well, I think you should go to California." Well, I really didn't have much going on in my life, I loaded up all my belongings in a duffel bag, and we drove over here. Now, the town I'm from in Steubenville, Ohio, is really interesting because I didn't know much about the United States. I knew about Steubenville was like a mile by mile, and there wasn't very many races there. There was, Caucasians individuals, and there was black people, and that was it. And the only thing I knew about California was what I seen on TV, the Beverly Hillbillies. And so I thought, okay, well, we're going to load up our car and go to Beverly Hills. And so we drove across the state in a 67 Mustang with a dog that threw up all over the place. And we arrived in California. Now, by then, I'm strung out on drugs, didn't have any job skills, just really didn't care much about life. I know prior to all of this happening, when I was 9 years old, me and my sisters woke up one day and found my mom laying on the floor. She had got shot in the head. We've seen that, and ever since then, my mom had changed, and I just didn't want to even deal with anything anymore. So I just checked out mentally. Until I arrived in California, I'm happy because I see the Hollywood sign. I'm like, yeah, okay, this is what's going on. But we kept on driving. Then I seen Rodeo Drive and Beverly Hills and the mansions. I'm like, yeah, this is it. This is where I'm going. And we just kept on driving, and the houses started to diminish. The sizes started to diminish. The neighborhoods started to diminish. And next thing you know, I end up in Linwood, California. And by then, I'm strung out. I'm addicted to almost anything. I really didn't care about much in life. And I ended up in a park. And then that's when I got introduced to PCP. I started smoking PCP. I still insisted on wanting to be a drug dealer. I was homeless. And that's what I thought was normal, normal life. And so I lived that way for a while. And I remember that I got a job once because it's just selling drugs just don't cut it. Not for me, because I'm the kind of drug addict that I have to taste what I'm selling to make sure that it's real. But the problem is I taste it too much and I don't have enough to get the money back. And so I started working at a fast food place. And first, I was working flipping hamburgers. Okay, that gave me free meals. I graduated to the fryers. They gave me free meals. Then I made it to the cash register. Well, back then, I survived by stealing and lying and selling drugs and all of that stuff. So I'm stealing money off the cash register. I'm stealing food, and I'm still selling drugs. And so that was what I thought was normal until the heat got on, and they figured, well, inventory wasn't counting right. Somebody had to be accountable. And so I decided to leave that restaurant and move to a different one. The same chain of restaurants, but in a different location. Now, I was already armed with the skills on how to flip a hamburger, and I already knew how to sell drugs. And back then, I started doing cocaine. And way back in the 80s, cocaine used to have ether in it, and I would snort cocaine, and I had classes in California, so I'm freebasing and all of that stuff. And so I'm living in an abandoned house. I'm working at this restaurant, and the manager of the restaurant happened to like cocaine, and so I'm getting him cocaine because he didn't go into places where I would go. And so I'm getting him cocaine. He let me be his roommate, and he hired me at this restaurant. And before you know it, he promoted me to being a shift manager, so I had control over all the cash registers. Now, I'm an addict, and I can admit that to my innermost self. And I don't want to sound like I'm proud or boastful, but this is what allows me to identify on how to fix this specific problem. And you put this addict in front of 3 cash registers, and it's on. And I even discovered that I can sell drugs out the drive-through window of this restaurant. And so at one point in time in the 80s, you could drive through this this restaurant and just order a hamburger with extra sauce, and he'd drive out with a burger and a bag of, bag of drugs. And that was where I was living. Well, all of that came crashing down one day when I'm living with the manager and we're doing cocaine, and he goes to the bathroom, come back, and all the coke is gone. And it's me and him in the house, and he's wondering where it went. And I told him, you know what? We're gonna find who took this, and they're gonna have issues. Well, there's only two of us there. And so he ended up kicking me out the house. I ended up getting fired from that place, but I established my corner there. And it's really funny because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. And once I had that corner established, I would go there at night. Now, in California, and the city's Costa Mesa, back in the days, there was only 4 black people. That's it. And I was one of them. And I was the only one that was out at 2 o'clock in the morning in the wintertime with just a t-shirt on. Now, my disguise was I wore a Dare t-shirt, like that Dare drug t-shirt. That was my disguise. And so I'm out there in my Dare shirt, and I'm wondering who's gonna know. Well, the police knew. And so I got arrested on, it's really fascinating because the street corner was Harbor and Wilson. I got arrested on Harbor and Wilson, and they took me to the county jail. And I got sentenced to a year. I did 6 months. I got out of county jail, and I went back to Harbor and Wilson, and I started selling drugs again. Well, the next thing I know, I get arrested again. They sent me to prison. I went to an institution called Donovan. I'm sitting in Donovan going, well, there's a problem. There's something ain't right. And I figured, well, maybe I'm not hiding the drugs correctly. And so I get out of Donovan, and I go back to Harbor and Wilson. But my idea was I was going to hide the drugs in that little coin change thing in your pants. And so I went back to Harbor and Wilson and ended up getting busted. They sent me back to prison. I'm sitting in prison for the second time going, there's a problem, And I figured, well, I know what the problem was. I didn't hide the drugs correctly. So I got out of prison and went back to Harbor and Wilson, and my idea was to put the drugs in my sock. Well, I put the drugs in my sock, and I went down there, and I got busted again. They violated me, sent me back to prison. I'm sitting in prison thinking, well, something's wrong. There's a problem going on here. And so I figured, okay, my idea was I'm gonna keep the drugs in my hand, and when the police come, I'm gonna throw them. And so I got out of prison. I went back to Harbor and Wilson, but I got too high and forgot the drugs was in my hand. And so I went back to prison again, and I'm sitting in prison. And each time I'm going to prison, they're giving me more and more time, and I'm just saying, well, this ain't right. Now I'm getting older. When I went to prison the first time, the end of Harbor Boulevard was made out of sand. I got out of prison, and they built an entire shopping mall. And so I kept doing more and more time in prison. And I thought, okay, well, there's a problem. And so I'm sitting in prison thinking, okay, I know what the solution is. And so I got out this time, and guess where I went? 1 block south to Harbor and Victoria. And I got busted again. Now, this time, when I got busted, the police officer that continued to arrest me asked me if I had a problem, and I've been homeless for a long time. I'm drinking Wild Irish Rose. I'm drinking, MD 2020. I'm drinking Thunderbird mixed with Kool-Aid, shaking, stirred. I'm smoking crack like a broken stove, and I was homeless and I was tired, and I just said, you know what, man, I'm done, And so he says, okay, and I didn't do it, but he had a friend that owned a treatment center, and I didn't have any money, so this lady scholarshiped me, Now I'm sitting in jail, I'm thinking, okay, I know what I'm going to do now. I go to this treatment center, I'm going to sell drugs out of there because that's a good cover-up. And it was really interesting because I've always believed in God, but I've always believed in a rescue God. Like, God, please help me. God, please make this stop. God, please don't let me die. That's the kind of God that I believe in. But I realized that God has always been doing something for me that I couldn't do for myself. And it was God that continued to arrest me or have me removed from society to save myself from killing myself. And so I'm ready to go to this treatment center. I get this bright idea and I'm ready to walk out the door. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to sell some drugs out this treatment center. And God intervened. They said, no, we're not going to let you go there by yourself. You're going to wait for these people to pick you up. And I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, you're messing with my plan. And this lady from the treatment center came, and she was a nice lady, and she was nice, clean cut, and she was smiling. And when I go to prison, I usually shave my head, and I get this mean mug. I'm just ready to do my time, you know. But this lady was smiling. And I'm like, well, what's up with you? And she's like, hi, how are you and everything. She introduced herself. I'm like, hi, and she's like, you want a cigarette? I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Now here's a person after spending years out in the street having to pretty much not trust anybody. Because when you're homeless for a long period of time, you don't trust people. You pretty much give up on life. When you're strung out on drugs, the only time you want something from me is because I got something that you want. And this lady didn't want nothing. She offered me a cigarette. I'm like, well, this is different. And then I'll never forget, she goes, hey, you want some Chinese food? I'm like, oh. And so she took me out. She gave me some food. And when she was taking me to this treatment center, she said, do me a favor. If you're going to leave, just walk out the gate. Don't jump over the fence. And I'm like, you trust me? Really? And that was the first time since I was 14 years old that I felt somebody trust me. And they took me to this treatment center, and I was looking around, and everybody was happy. Everybody was clean. I mean, when I'm homeless, I don't bathe. I don't change clothes. I don't do anything. I mean, I remember I had a pair of socks that I wore for a long time. And I remember peeling those socks off my feet one day. And I remember setting them beside me, and I woke up, and my socks was so stiff that you could have used it for a boomerang. That's how long I wore stuff on. I remember going to jail, and they released me on a Sunday with my jail boxers. I had the magic marker 32 for my size on it, and I went back to jail Wednesday to return the same boxers I was wearing. And here I am, going in this treatment center, and everybody's happy. And I'm wondering what is going on. I didn't trust nobody, and it's a new environment, and I didn't know what. I was a stranger in a strange land. And they put me in this apartment, and they said, we trust you by yourself. And I'm like, wow. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give this thing a shot. And I stayed there for a year. And I had some major adjustment issues. I was so used to having to fight and defend myself. I got into trouble for slapping the guy for no reason because I had anger issues. And they still said, that's okay, we understand your issues. Let's work on that. And so I stayed there in that treatment center, and ended up, and it was court ordered, and I ended up graduating from that treatment center. And that was back in 1996. And, I had 12 months of sobriety. I was working telemarketing. I mean, I haven't had a job since 2000, and I'm working telemarketing. And every time I would get a paycheck, I would have to just sign it over to this treatment center. Well, it's a good thing I didn't have money anyway. And I remember being at this treatment center, and I went to my first 12-step meeting. That's when I got introduced to some sort of method of recovery. I believe in the 12 steps, but that's what works for me. And I remember going to my first meeting, and the first time I got to share it, I told them my name is Anthony. I have this issue, and I told them this treatment center is mistreating me. And they're like, what? I go, they're making me do chores, and that's not fair. I have to eat hot dogs, and that ain't fair. I have to make up my bed, and that ain't fair. And everybody clapped. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then the next guy said that I whine too much and cussed me out. And then I asked him to be my sponsor, and he introduced me to those steps. And somewhere in those steps, I found a God that's in the miracle business, a completely different God than what I knew before. And so I was doing good. Everything was great. Life was wonderful. I'm working telemarketing. I tried to go back to school. And one day I ran into an old acquaintance, and you know, he was still doing drugs, and I missed the limelight. I missed the action because newly sober it was boring. I go to meetings, I go to work, I go to sleep. But at his house, there was fast times, debauchery, all the stuff that I missed. And I went over there and I started doing drugs again. And I remember this last time I got high, I didn't like it. I hated it. And there came one point in time in which I said, you know what, God, I know what you're going to do. And I'm scared, but I'm tired. And I cried out to God. And God did for me what I did for myself. And I got arrested the next day. You see, once my addiction starts, myself, I have to be physically removed from society to stop. Nobody can beg me to quit. There is no reason for me to quit. Nothing's going to work. I have to be physically removed. And God heard my cry. And I got arrested March 28, 1999. I haven't touched a drink or a drug since March 29, 1999. And where is my life today? I have a life I never could have imagined because I come to rely upon God. I always believed in God, and I remember 2 years sober, I was sitting at a park, and I feel that God speaks to us in our own personal way, in a way in which we understand it, nobody else does. And I remember sitting at that park, and I was laying on a bench. At 2 years sober, I was clear-minded. I said, you know what, God? I know cars run on gas, and I know this bench is solid. I know this for a fact. Prove to me that you're there. And I got this overwhelming feeling that brought tears to my eyes. I looked around that bench. I opened my eyes and I looked around that bench. There was like little animals around there. I always share this story because this is how God has touched me. I've seen little animals around. I've seen the trees look like it was in 3 dimensions. And I thought maybe I was having a flashback or nothing, but this was God saying, I got you. And I come to rely on God ever since. Since March 29th, 1999 to right now, I haven't had a drink or drug in 22 years. Now, I came in to my new life with a box of letters from prison and an 8th grade education, and I was homeless. And God said, you know what? Here's the rules. Complete what you start. Period. And so everything I start, whether I like it or not, I have to complete. God said, always be kind to people and don't intentionally do harm. Those are my rules. I'm like, okay. And so I started going to school and I started completing things. And I got my psych tech license. I'm a licensed psychiatric technician. And I know for a fact that I just do the footwork and the results up to God. So I found a God in miracle business. I found a God can open doors that I could not, and I rely upon Him. Because for the past 22 years, every morning I hit my knees before I hit my feet. Every morning. And I say a prayer and I turn my life over to God. And that has been working. And what is that saying? If it isn't broke, why fix it? And so I became a psych tech back in 2004. And I was in school. School wasn't easy for me because I quit school in the 8th grade. Learning math and, all the other classes, English and things like that. I got my GED in the county jail. But God said, finish what you start. And so I started going to college. I got my psych tech. And then I turned around and continued to go to school and I got my associate's degree. And so now I have an associate in arts degree, an associate in science degree in psych tech. And I applied for the state boards and I got a license. Now people was telling me, you got a bunch of felonies. There's no way they're going to give you a license. But you know what? God said something different. I applied for the state boards and I got a license. And so here I am. I'm a psych tech. I have my associate's degree and I kept going. And next thing you know, I am transitioning over to become a registered nurse. And so now I'm going to school for the registered nurse. Everybody's saying, you know what, you got a bunch of felonies on your record. There's no way the nursing board's going to grant you permission to pass medications. But again, it's like, you know what, I do the footwork and leave it up to God. Now, granted, I had to jump through extra hoops that other people didn't because of my background. Because most of the 90s I spent in prison. But I put my trust in God 100%, and I just did what's in front of me. And I remember they told me, well, first you have to finish your class, then we'll tell you if you get a license. You know, and a lot of people were saying, you know what? No, don't go for it. You know, it's like, you know what? I ain't got time for that. God is with me. And so I finished my class and I applied, and nursing board says, nope, you can't have your license. I'm like, okay. They go, however, and that's one thing I learned. Sometimes you just stop and listen. They said, however, if you're willing to go on probation for 3 years for your nursing license, and if you're willing to take urine test every week, we will allow you to have a temporary license. And I'm like, I want what you have to offer. I'm willing to go in to get it. And then I smiled, and by then I had 10 years of sobriety. I haven't had a drink or drug. You want me to urinate in the cup, man? Look, I'll fill up a big gulp cup. I don't care because I'm clean. And you want me to go on probation? I can do probation, seriously. And I did what they asked. And next thing you know, they give me my license, and now I'm a registered nurse. And it's really funny because I always wanted to be a drug dealer. God said, okay, now you're a nurse. And so I have a license to pass medications. And I got that done, and I just kept on going. And I learned that once you start something, you can't stop. So I started going to work at this one company. I stayed with this one company. I do the job as they want me to do and do a little bit more. And I do it consistently. Next thing you know, they're asking me, do you want a promotion? I'm like, yeah, until what? They said, well, director of nursing. Okay. You know, obviously God felt that my life was I'm a director of nursing in a psychiatric hospital. That's where I'm sitting right now. And obviously my life was so insane, God felt I'd be the best fit for this job. And this is what I get to do. And I'm sitting there going, okay, this is great. Life is wonderful. You know, and mind you, going through school was hard. I failed statistics 3 times. But God said, you know what? Finish what you start. And I learned a lot of tricks and tools that if you fail one class, what you do is you take the same class with the same teacher because you know what they want. And you just keep doing it until you're successful. And so now I have a nursing license, I have a psychiatric technician's license. In between school, I picked up a bunch of certificates. I'm a certified addiction treatment counselor, 3rd level nurse. I'm a certified anger management counselor. I'm a relapse prevention counselor. I'm a licensed psychiatric technician. I'm a registered nurse. I'm a director of nursing. I have so many initials behind my name than I do in my name. And I love it, you know. And I thought, okay, I'm good. God's like, no, you're not. And I went back to school. And next thing you know, I'm graduating from a university. And I got my Bachelor of Science degree in nursing, as well as I'm a public health nurse. And I'm doing all of these things, and I'm sharing this stuff with people just so they can understand that no matter how far down in life you have gone, you can benefit if you want to. And all I'm doing is just trying to be the best example of what God has allowed me to be as a human being. And so now I have all of this stuff. I'm like, okay, God, thank you. And God's like, no. I ain't done with you yet. And I got the opportunity to get a job at one of the colleges I went through, and they offered me a position as an instructor, and I applied, and lo and behold, they hired me. And so now I'm a science instructor at a community college. I'm a director of nursing services out here, you know, and I have all these degrees. And it's funny because at one point in time, the only science I knew is if you mix baking soda and cocaine together, you got to rock. Now I'm teaching science. I mean, I'm teaching people how the human body works. I'm teaching cardiovascular system, respiratory system, renal system. I mean, you name it. And God is all there because I know there's one thing I have been doing consistently is relying on God, doing the right thing, not causing harm to people, that simple roadmap. And sure, life has ups and downs. Sure, I get tired. Sure, I get frustrated. but I have a community around me that I can rely on, somebody I can trust, that I can go to and say, you know what, this is what's going on. Or I've been hanging out with the same group of people for years. I don't even have to say anything. Just show up. They can look at me and say, are you okay? And I have I have enough sense now to go, you know what, no, I'm not. And they're not, oh, well, too bad. No, they're like, what can we do to help? I have really strong support. And so this is where my life is. And I thought I was done, but God says, no, you're not. I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do? He says, well, you need to clean up your record. And so I started applying for my certificate of rehabilitation, which is one step below getting a pardon from the governor. And I remember going to court and I talked to my brother, and God bless him, and I love him to death. But sometimes family members aren't the best support system. I just got to call it the way it is, you know. And I told my brother, I'm going to court to represent myself. He goes, man, you're a fool. Okay, that's fine, but I had God with me. It's like, whatever. And so I went to court the first time with my paperwork, and they said, well, no, we can't grant you your certificate of rehabilitation. I'm like, okay. And I asked a friend of mine, can you assist me? I'm like, no, you can do this yourself. You don't need to spend all your money on an attorney. Okay, well, now I'm educated. I can read now. I can process information. And so what I did was I went to court, but this time I got a copy of the transcripts so I could read exactly what they said. And I sat back and I went through word by word and exactly what the judge said I did, and I brought it right back to him. And the second time he goes, well, this is close enough. We need this, this, and this. And it's really funny because it told me I can't give you legal advice, but if you had this, this, and this. See, I listened to the whole thing. And now I'm reading it. And I brought everything he wanted. And the last time I brought something, he goes, you know what, Mr. Brown? I haven't had attorneys put anything together this good. You're granted your certificate of rehabilitation. Man, I'm like, yeah, God. I mean, woo, I'm on fire. You know, it seems like since I discovered God, what can happen? I mean, I know as a human being, there's nothing that's going to occur in the end. I'm going to expire. That's just the way this body is. It's not going to last forever, you know. But between birth and death, I get to experience a lot of different things in life. It's up to me whether I want to make these things enjoyable or not. Life still happens. There's ups and downs and good and bad, but it's my perception of life that makes a difference. And I learned this from a guy that used to drink wine warm out of a brown paper bag and smoking crack out of car antenna or smoking methamphetamine out of a light bulb. This is the life I got today. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm like, God, I'm tired. And God's like, I'm not. And so he's like, why don't you tell everybody about your life? So I wrote a book and I published it. And now I have a book floating out there. And it's really funny because I thought I'd write a book and get a bunch of them, put them in my car, drive around, do it with my friends. I had no clue that publishing these things, I'd be brought to individuals like you on this radio station. Publishing this thing, I'd be invited to podcasts. I didn't even know, but God did. And so I did. You know, I'm like, okay, God, I have these two jobs. Actually, I have two careers. I have this education. I have this book. I have a certificate of rehabilitation. I'm good. And God's like, no. Now you have to get back to the community. And so I called up my brother. He was still homeless. And I asked, what can I do for him? And he was living in some abandoned office building. And I know what that's like. And it's in Ohio. So I thought I'd do him a favor because now I have some resources. And I said, okay, whoever has that building, let me know. I'll buy the building so he can live in it. And he couldn't do it because he's still, you know, in his disease. He's still drinking and using. And that's okay. So I told him what I'll do is I will buy something whenever you're ready, you can come. So I bought a house in Mansfield, Ohio. I bought a 9,000 square foot house with 12 bedrooms, a 1916 mansion. And right now, I'm currently refurbishing it. I'm using the money for the books and fundraisers and all my speaking things, just so I can give to the homeless people. Just so I can give back to where I come from, you know. And I'm sitting back now, and I'm like, all right, God, I'm sure I'm cool now. And God still says, not yet. And so June 28th, I go back to school again. I'm going to study to be a nurse practitioner, and that's get added to my life. Now, the things I get to do with the knowledge that I have, I get to be of service to people every day. Outside my door right now is 46 mentally ill people, and I love doing what I do. You know, I have no problem with any form of psychosis, any kind of drug addiction. It doesn't matter. Come to me, and I will be more than happy to give everything that I have for you because I know what it's like to be in those shoes. I know what it's like to walk around hungry. I'm going to always feed people. I know what it's like to walk around in a delusional state. I know what it's like to be homeless. I know what it's like to be desperate. I know what it's like to be in jail. I know what it's like to be in prison. I have all this experience. And what my job is now is to find other people who are traveling that path and let them know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. That's what I get to do today. That's my blessing. You know, all of this stuff. I mean, oh well. And God gave me two corporations. And and it's just sometimes I sit back and go, oh yeah, let me think about that. Let me dust that. Oh yeah, I own two cars, and me and Bacon Mergo own a house in California. You know, but it's only stuff. That's all it is. I cannot let the gifts from my recovery take away the gift of my program. That's my relationship with God. I cannot let nothing interfere with my connection. And God is with me all the time. And a lot of times people ask me, how come you're so successful? What I have done in 22 years, most people haven't done in their lifetime. But somehow God felt that He likes me, or maybe it's I just come to rely. I just come to rely on it. That's that. And I talk to God every day. I pray at night. I review my day, and we just chit chat. You know, God is like my best friend. You know, and I try to explain that to people, and they're like, okay, you're right, whatever. It's like, all right, cool. You know, it's not for me to try to convince somebody what God can do. I always tell people my actions speak so loud, don't pay attention to what I'm saying. You know, and as long as none of this stuff is more important to God, then I get to play with it. Because when I'm done, because the human body's gonna expire, I'm gone. And this stuff is still here. I've never seen a hearse. I've never seen a hearse with a U-Haul connected to it. Never. You know, so this I don't care about this stuff. This is God stuff. I just get to play with it. You know, and I'm forever grateful for what He has given me. And I just want as many people to know that all of this is possible. You know, I see a lot of stuff going on, and I can identify a bunch of stuff, and I do what I can to, you know, promote well-being in the community. The whole vaccination thing is, you know, I work in the hospital, so vaccinations is important. And people ask me, "Are you going to get vaccinated?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Why?" I go, "You know how much stuff I put in my body? You think I'm worried about this thing?" You know, I drink wine out of a brown paper bag with other people. You know what I probably ingested in my day? You know, I mean, I smoked crack and injected drugs. You know, and I laugh because COVID did hit our hospital, and people are like, "Aren't you worried about it?" It's like, I got an immune system. I put heroin and cocaine and meth and crack and wine and ate out of a dumpster. I got an immune system. You think COVID wants to come in here? Seriously? You know? And I didn't want to tell. I was like, plus I got God. And so I went through this whole thing. I didn't get COVID. I got my vaccinations. I didn't get sick. I didn't grow an extra limb or anything like that. And I'm free to do whatever, I want to do. Because there's a reason why God wants me alive, apparently. Because I had a lot of opportunities to die. I had guns pulled on me. I've overdosed several times. I've been in prison riots. I've been delusional where I wanted to walk out of a window on a two-story building. But God wanted me to do something. And I think nothing happens in this world by mistake. I was supposed to be here today in this environment. And what's really funny, and I'm smiling from this coming to realize it, I've gone through 45 minutes of this interview and none of my clients acted out. Nobody beat on the door. Nobody's fighting on the patio. Nothing. Isn't that and that just makes me smile. It reinforces my belief that there is a power greater than me in charge of me, and I will let him be in charge of me. You know, I have a group of students. I'm teaching them how to practice some skills in psychiatric technology so that they can get out there and help some of the homeless people. You know, I want to get involved in helping people. I tell people, half of me I want to put a cape on to save the world, but the half of me is like I'll step back and just call it job security. If you want to do what you want to do, sometimes you have to get to the point where you're ready to surrender, you're ready to let go. That's when things work. You know, when you're hanging on to your idea and it's mine and you know, just let me have it and it smells and it's grody, but it's mine. It's like, okay. But I'm lucky because God ripped things out of my hands to my fingernails come off. And I'm cool with it. You know, now I got a fresh set of nails, manicured, you know. I am enjoying things. You know what's funny is because I'm still learning a lot of new things. And sometimes my thinking is a little odd, which is humorous to me. I was just learning how to use a blender because I was homeless for 23 years, and so I'm learning how to use a blender. And I I'm like an all or nothing thinker, and I got my little apron on that says "Kiss the Cook," and you know I go to the fresh fruit market and get fresh fruit, and I got recipes on the internet, and I'm mixing up smoothies, and everything's cool. I'm like Chef Boyardee smooth, and out of a clear blue sky, something tells me one day, put an onion in your smoothie. Okay, now why would I even come up with that? But I did, and it ruined my blender. So that just goes to tell me sometimes I can't rely on my own thinking, and I need other people to help me because I'm insane without support. Another thing I discovered is I'm learning how to cook. Being homeless for 23 years, there's a lot of stuff you don't know how to do. And so I thought I'd start out small with a crock pot. Okay. And so my first thing is I'm gonna make beans with ham hocks. So when my mom used to do it, okay, easy recipe. I look up online, throw the ham hocks in there, put the water in it, let it go for a minute, you know, put the beans in it, good. Okay, well it was flat, it was tasteless. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get jiggy with it. I'm gonna put an onion in it this time. Because you know I'm familiar with onions. And so I put an onion in and everything's good. You know, people tell me put a little salt and pepper. I'm like, okay, this is almost there. You know, and somebody said, you know, you really want to take it to another level? Put some garlic in it. Okay. And so I get everything hooked up. I go on the internet. I'm watching how they do it. It's all fancy. You take the side of the knife and you mash it, and then you cut it up and you put it in. And so I'm going through that, and I'm throwing the garlic in, and my house is smelling all garlicky and everything. And I take a taste, and I got like garlic soup, and garlic's coming out of my pores. And you know, I went to my friend. I'm like, man, I followed your suggestion. I put some garlic in my beans, and it's awful. And he goes, well, how much did you put in it? I go, well, I'll put that thing in there. And they're like, no, you're supposed to just put a little clove in there. So now I know the difference between a clove and a ball. So I'm learning. Okay, so I won't do that anymore. Just like I won't. But it's okay because these are my problems today. That I'm blessed to even be able to smile because again, I am that guy who survived on eating food waste in a dumpster. I'm that guy who the only heat I had was curled up in a corner when it's raining. I'm that guy who, if I had to choose between getting a hit of something and eating, I'm going to get a hit of something. Now I'm this individual. I'm an author. I mean, I manage a team of people that deal with mental illness. I educate a team of students that deal with mental illness. I get to go out in the world and tell people that this is possible. All you have to do is learn how to let go of some things and pick up others. I know from my experience, Nothing happens quickly, nothing happens overnight, but everything is worthwhile if you can stand the wait. God is still in the miracle business. God is still with me today. And it's before this meeting, I was tired. I did my last class, get my domestic violence certification. Yep, there goes another one. So now I'm certified domestic violence specialist too. You know, and so I did that today, and I went and did a house assessment, and I'm dealing with students on the floor. I'm like, I wonder if I'm going to make it through this interview. And God's like, well, you have a Keurig over there, don't you? You know where the water is, don't you? Get jiggy, put some of those creamers in there, and you're all right. And here I am, connecting with some individuals, discussing what I can do to be part of a solution. I could spend my time getting mad and go, oh my God, the misjustice that's going on. I can say, you know what? How about if I do something positive and be an example instead? And that's what I get to do, and I love it. I love it. I, life only lasts a lifetime. It's what we get to do in that lifetime. That's what matters, and that's where why waste the time being angry? Why waste the time continuing to look in your rearview mirror when life is out your windshield? I can always remember back then. I can say, oh yeah, I was an abused child. Okay, yeah, my mom got shot. Oh yeah, I was homeless. Okay, so what? So what? What am I doing today? What's my future going to look like? God willing, in 2 years of hard work, I'm going to be a nurse practitioner. Can you believe it? I'm going to have a license to write prescriptions. That's crazy. And I always say that's crazy, but God goes, no. That's what's called a blessing. It's not crazy, it's a blessing. And I learned to appreciate what He's given to me. And that's why I speak so openly, so freely with individuals about what God has given me. And like I tell everybody else, forget what I say, watch what I do. My life is an open book. My criminal record, if you look in the right place, you're going to see it. And if you look in the right place, you're going to see my book. If you look in the right place, you're going to see a bunch of different podcasts. I had Dr. Drew come to my facility, was it Friday, just to visit me. And people are like, oh my God, do you know Dr. Drew? I'm like, yeah, he ain't nobody, but deep down inside, I'm like, oh my God, and it's good. And it's like, I want people to know that this is possible. This is possible. It doesn't matter, for me, it doesn't matter what color your skin is. It doesn't matter what kind of education you got. It doesn't matter where you come from. Because I went from a park bench to Park Avenue. I lived it. And I still live it. I still live it. And so I talked a whole bunch, I'm sure. And I'm open for any questions. I'm sorry if I went too long. And that's my story. That's who I am.
Oh no, you're fine.
Exactly.
I mean, at the end of the day, one thing that we are always about is telling what we know God is capable of. That's what we live for. Me and Q are the biggest God's advocates. Um, because that's all you know. We know where we came from. We know where He brought us from. We know how He brought us through and brought us to it to bring us through it. And at the end of the day, when you're covered in His grace and mercy, there's nothing nobody else can do. When He has His hands on the situation, there's nothing that nobody else can do. If you want to change, He'll let you change. If you want to change, He'll put you back on the potter's wheel so He could spin you around and do it all over again when you say that you're ready. But you have to get to the point, just like you said, that you have to be sick and tired. A lot of people haven't reached that sick and tired point yet. So this is the reason why they're still stuck and stagnated. You can't bypass your process to get you to your destined destination. You can't bypass the process. There's no way of getting around it. You're going to have to process somewhere. And the best thing to do is to go through the process. A lot of people, the issue is, it's not the fact that you got to process to get somewhere. It's your response to the fact that you're processing. When your response is wrong, you won't process right. you'll end up putting your hands in it when you should just be sitting back and just watching God work. Because one thing he doesn't need is our help on anything. That's the one thing he don't need. And at the end of the day, our issue is we like to put our hands in it.
Mhm.
We don't know how to walk away. You know, that's that God is the one person that when it says he says, let me have it, we're quick to say no.
Mhm.
He's the main one that we say no to, but we say yes to everything else.
Mhm.
And a lot of the things that we have chosen in our lifetime to say yes to were no good for us. They were not his plan because the word says his ways are not our ways. Our plans are not his plans because that's not what he chose. And at the end of the day, we could have reached destinations a lot quicker if we would have just kept our hands out of it. If we would have just said yes all the way to him and did this, throw the white flag and we gonna wave it, it's thrown. I can't fight with you no more. I already know that you tried to take me somewhere that I cannot take myself. I already know that you had kept me from things that I could not keep myself from because if it was up to me, I would have died out in the street.
Hmm.
If it was up to me, I would have died over here. But what he did was he sheltered you. He put you in the cleft of that rock. And every time you went to jail, you was in the cleft.
That's right.
But when you came out, you was exposed.
Mhm.
And every time you got exposed, it got worse. You see, the people the people tend to forget that the words say every time you step back into a thing,
Mhm.
worse comes behind it. So
Worse.
every time you went back into the wall and every time you got back out, it was
Mhm.
there waiting on you. And
Mhm.
every time it stopped and waited on you, it knew you was gonna take the bait.
Hmm.
It knew you were gonna take the bait. So this time, when I send you back, I gotta send you back just a little bit longer because maybe you'll get it this time. Because
Mhm.
every time you went back, you thought you had an epiphany, but you had the wrong one.
Mhm.
That epiphany won't get you nowhere.
Mhm.
That epiphany kept sending you back where you didn't want to be,
That's
where
right.
you physically didn't want to be. But that epiphany sent you back where he needed you to be so that you could understand where you needed to go. At the end of the day, it took you how many years to understand where you needed to go? Every time you went in and got out, you went back to the same place.
Mhm.
Like you said, what's the definition of insanity?
Doing the same
Every time,
thing
every
over
time you got out, you went back to the
and
same place. And
expect
you thought
every
you thought you had it figured out this time
Mhm.
around. But every time you went back, you realized that what you had figured out won't right either.
Mhm.
So at the end of the day, you kept saying that something won't right. That something that won't right was you.
Mhm.
So when you figured out that something won't right and you had to change you, that's when it all changed. That's when the pathway became clear. Because let me tell you something, just because you got a record, it don't stop your future.
That's right.
A lot of people don't understand that. I know a lot of folks with records that have become great things and great people, have
Yes.
went great places, have made great feats. So at the end of the day, your past do not define who you are. A record does not stop your future.
That's
Mhm.
right.
Because if God say he wants you to be over here so he can have you in this place for these people at this time, that's where he gonna place you,
That's right.
regardless if you qualified or not. Because one thing I have seen him do is qualify the unqualified.
Mhm.
Amen.
So at the end of the day, I commend you for the feats that you have made. And the thing of it is, let me tell you something. You can't be a person that counsel people when you ain't been through nothing.
That's right.
So at the end of the day, you had to be able to go through something in order to counsel people on the level that you do. And
Mhm.
you had to go through your own state of mental illness in order to teach somebody how to get through their state of mental illness. And a lot of people don't understand that sometimes you had to be an obstacle in your own way
Mhm.
in order to understand how to get out of your way. And then when you in the way, you're in somebody else's way on purpose.
Mhm.
So
And
that's where the stop comes in. You got to
yeah.
understand how the life cycle go. You
Mhm.
become an obstacle in somebody else's way on purpose, but an obstacle in a good way. Not an
Mhm.
obstacle where you are burdened, but you have become a uplifter and an outlet for people to be able to go and understand. Well, I know I need treatment. I know I need help, but I don't know how to really go get that help. And it took you to be able to go through that so you can help other people get where you are. So again, hats off to you, and hats off to you for being as clean as you have been.
Yes.
So congratulations and on your anniversary for that. So
Yeah.
we wish you many more years of recovery, and we pray that you continue on the path that you on, so you can continue allowing the light that He has placed in you to show. So that's what I have to say to you, and I tell you that don't you fret on your journey. Don't fret on the journey, because he's giving you the outlet on life that He's giving you for a reason. Everybody can't sit on this here screen, any screen for that, any platform for that matter, be as transparent as you were to say that, yeah, I'm coming from an addictive state into a state of I'm no longer an addict, but I can tell
Mhm.
you what it was like when I was.
That's right.
Let me help you or give you the resources to get you out of the same bondage.
Mhm.
That is awesome when you can unbind yourself, when you can be delivered and help somebody else get deliverance, because that's all it is. At
Yes,
the
sir.
end of the day, He put you in a place to be able to help people get delivered. A
That's
lot of
right.
people may not see that that's what He do, but that's what He's doing. And at the end of the day, allow Him to do what He do. You know,
Mhm.
God is God. We our arms are too short to box with the man, as I say. And at the end of the day, he gonna be God with or without you. But
That's right.
if you're gonna do it with Him, at least do it in the right way. So, like I said,
Yeah.
I commend you, man. It was awesome to hear you tell your testimony. I hope you continue to even go even further and tell people even more about where you headed, because you ain't got there yet. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So, I pray that God continue to bless you abundantly, and that He continues to give you confidence in the things that you are trying to do in the areas that you need it in, so that when you do stand in front of these people, they can't look at you like, oh, you are not a statistic. Everything that people said you couldn't do, you have done.
Mhm.
You're doing it. And that's what you do. I'm one of them people. I came from Shelbyville too. You can tell me all day that I'm not capable of doing something, baby, I'm gonna show you wrong.
That's right.
So that right there, I commend you, man.
Yes,
And
sir.
I say in our closing, continue to embrace your process in your healthy place. Because even when you got tired and sick and tired of being sick and tired, He brought you back to that shielded place, which was jail. So now in your healthy place, you can tell somebody how to go through the process of going to jail and getting out, and what you learned from it and how you learned it. Even though your mindset wasn't correct, in that last place, He sent the people, the support
Hmm.
system, people to recognize you needed help. You didn't just need to be arrested. The people to recognize that you needed more, you needed love, you need to be healthy. So at this point in your healthy place, continue to embrace it. Embrace you learning how to cook. Embrace you getting back into society. Embrace the minor hiccups that may cause you frustration, and don't get frustrated about it. Just trust the process and continue to enjoy it. You're learning a new craft now. And I love it because I'm learning a new craft now too. When it comes to me planting, I was given a task, I was given a plant, and it survived for almost a year. I got that at a funeral, but it spoke life into my life. And I speak life into it, and I speak life into you. And I tell you, take that as your craft, as your cooking place, as your creative place, because you never know where else God is going to take you. Because the idle mind is the devil's workshop. So when you're not working, you need something to do. So continue to work, continue to be at peace, and continue to embrace your process. With that, we're going to turn it over to Fred.
So, I mean, y'all really much pretty much mirror what I was thinking anyway. Honestly speaking, Mr. Brown, just to hear you come from a place of transparency, um, that really speaks to me as an individual. And I appreciate the fact that you came from that point of transparency. And I think really speaks to a lot of what us as men or black men should be able to do nowadays, to be able to speak from that point of transparency and be and own our truths. And again, I most definitely commend you on that, because it's hard enough to come from a place of honesty. It's even more difficult to come from a place of transparency and remain true to oneself. So I commend you. I mean, we wish you the best of luck and prosperity and everything that you endeavor to do. Continue to push forward, continue to push the needle forward, continue to push the rock forward, and just, you know, you're already in that, you're already in your safe and your healthy space. Continue to stay in that healthy space and continue to allow God to use you in the way that He has.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate your kind words. It just makes me smile. This is just another thing that I get to experience. You know, it's another thing that I would love for everybody to experience. But like you all said, we have to arrive at our own journey when we do.
Exactly.
But when I finally let go of the wheel and let God drive, man, I had to put the helmet and the seatbelt on.
That's it.
Go one Friday, partner. Hold on.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so quick to tell people all the time, be slowful what you say yes to. You know, because honey, sometimes when you say that 3 letter word, you set yourself up for some stuff that you have no
I did.
idea was gonna was going to take place. Because we never, our lives are not our own, you know, and we are here for a purpose, for a
Mhm.
reason. But I believe that our lives are for other people to be able to see, so they can see God at work.
Mhm.
That's
You know what I
right.
mean? And at the end of the day, man, like I said, be slowful of what you say yes to.
Oh yeah.
Don't be so quick to say yes to everything, because everything ain't meant for you, and you take on something that ain't for you. You know, that's gonna add weight to your life when you should be able to be carefree. You know, and that's what we want for people. We know everybody ain't gonna make it in. We already know this, because everybody don't want it. Some people feel like they're gonna give up too much to try to live right for a change, and there's nothing that you're giving up. You know, there's a whole lot that you gain, but until you learn that for yourself, you'll never know. You'll never understand why I can say those words. You know, but at the end of the day, again, you take what you have learned, what you have been through, Mr. Brown, continue to do what you are doing, and continue to be a blessing to other people.
Indeed.
Well, thank
Yes,
you.
So before you get off, please tell the people how to reach you, where they can find you, where you located. So we do have people that listen to us in California, and please let them know how to reach you so that they'll know exactly where you are located if they are in need of resources.
Okay, well, my website is anthonyhowardbrown.com. Um, my my email address is anthony.brown@sbcglobal.net. Um, I think my Instagram is Brown Manor, Brown underscore Manor. You can Google me, Anthony Howard Brown. I pop up all over the place. One of my companies is coordinating assisting recovery environments care. You can tell you're at the right spot because you'll see a big blue heart. Um, and then my book is out there from Park Bench to Park Avenue. You can get that on Amazon, and it has all the connections to me in it. And so I'm in Southern California, and I'm pretty reachable. If you want help, if you want it bad enough, and you want me to help you, you will find me. You know, you will find me. I'm not hidden. I'm out there, and I'll do what I can to help. You know, I believe in a hand up, not a handout.
Yes.
there you
Yes. I
You
like
know,
that. I like
but
All
that.
right.
go. I love that.
Right. So again, thank you for coming on and having a awesome night with us. Do our other hosts have anything else to say?
No, I thank you once again for coming on. I thank you for being a support to the people and being able to give back, because God brought you from the park bench to Park Avenue. So I'm excited about that. You guys go get his book. Once again, thank you for always supporting us. We love you, and we will see you back on Wednesday. And don't forget, Fred is on Fridays at 8 p.m. So we will see you back here Wednesday, 8 o'clock sharp. Don't miss
Yeah.
it. We love you.